Hello BookTube, I'm Jonathan, and I love robots. Blade Runner 2049 is one of my favorite films, and Detroit Become Human is one of my favorite video games. So I thought I'd take a look at how robots, androids, and cyborgs have been depicted throughout the years in science fiction books, as well as how predictions for the future of robots have changed over time. There are too many great books about robots to cover all of them, so I have picked 3 classic science fiction books and 3 modern science fiction books with a focus on robots. So let's dive into them, starting with I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. I, Robot is a series of short stories that were written between 1940 and 1950 and were woven together into a novel. The stories take place over an extended period of time where humans create quite basic robots and then they develop into more advanced robots over time. At first, these robots are used for servants and companions, but their roles become more complex as the technology advances. One of the main human characters is a robo-psychologist, and she is brought in order to figure out explanations for strange robot behavior. And in this book, there are some rather annoying robots. After some confusion or miscommunication, some robots will come to a strange conclusion on an issue. And they are highly intelligent beings, so they're able to rationalize that position. I found this to be a rather clever commentary on how seemingly logical arguments can be used to come to an illogical conclusion, and that leads to some frustrating but interesting interactions. In some ways, the robots are quite human. A small example is when a robot is surprised by something, they drop a tool that they were holding. This kind of reflex is something you might expect from a human, but you wouldn't necessarily expect to be something that would be programmed into a robot. And it's that kind of freedom of thinking and action that allows robots to respond to complex inputs. But it's also what leads to confusion when interpreting the 3 laws of robotics. In this future world, robots are built to adhere to 3 primary rules. 1. Don't harm or allow harm to come to humans. 2. Obey humans unless doing so conflicts with the first law. And 3. Protect itself, unless this conflicts with the first or second law. This is a practical and seemingly simple way to design robots, and in some regards, the robots act more ethically than humans. But it also highlights the complexity and confusion around the interpretation and execution of seemingly well-intended ideas. City by Clifford D. Simak. Like I, Robot, City is a series of connected stories that were written in the 40s and 50s, and Simak stitched these together as a novel, and it was published in 1952. In it, Simak compares a pastoral lifestyle with that of life in a sprawling city. This exploration includes the dangers of technology, but interestingly, this isn't represented specifically in the robots. Robots serve both humans and dogs as caretakers. So in contrast to other works, they are something that provides protection rather than invokes fear. The robots display some differences from humans in their philosophy. They seem to be more interested in the preservation of life than they are in individual gain. However, they do pick up some qualities from humans, such as their propensity for nostalgia. As a result, the human dialogue does sound rather similar to the robot dialogue. I think Simak's depiction of robots could be interpreted as a representation of human potential, or humans at their best, because these robots are kind and caring. The book explores society through both a technical and spiritual lens, and in an interesting twist on expectations, despite their technological nature, some of the robots develop psychic abilities. And this ties into the themes of what pulls society apart versus what is enriching to one's soul and the community. Simak isn't a hard science fiction writer, so he doesn't spend much time diving into the technical explanations for the limitations or abilities of these robots. Rather, Simak uses the robots not so much as a tool for exploring the future of human technology, but rather the future of human philosophy. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This is the classic novel that inspired the legendary film Blade Runner and its sequel Blade Runner 2049. When compared to the robots in the first 2 books on this list, these androids are much more human-like in their appearance. The only way to differentiate them from humans is to either do a bone marrow test or an empathy test, which humans should pass and androids should fail. In this world, robot animals also exist, and that's because real animals are rare and expensive. Owning an animal is a status symbol, so for many people, owning a robot animal is the only way that they have the opportunity to care for one. And these androids are hyper intelligent. perhaps too intelligent, as they start making decisions for themselves and rebel, and human bounty hunters are enlisted in order to retire them. In classic PKD fashion, he creates a surreal and paranoid atmosphere. Some of the androids know that they are androids, but what if their memory was wiped and they were programmed to believe that they were human? Would an android know that it was an android? And how can a human prove that they're human? Another strange and interesting question that PKD poses is whether androids are capable of love, and whether a human can fall in love with an android. This theoretically should be tough because androids don't have empathy, but really, to what extent do humans? There is evidence that the androids lack empathy, but the same could also be said for us. Herein comes the empathy test to determine whether someone is a human or an android. And interestingly, the questions involve animals. I found this a clever way to highlight that the further away something is from our own experience, the less empathy we tend to display for that being. Like Simak, PKD is not a hard science fiction author, so the focus of the book is not exactly how these androids are built and operate. He does explore the dangers of technology and of these realistic and intelligent androids. However, the real danger is our own loss of empathy. All three of these classic science fiction books envisage different futures for robots on Earth and beyond. However, in my opinion, the way they explore the creation of these robots is more concerned with the practical and ethical implications for humans, more so than they are the robots themselves. So let's see what changes as we dive into these modern sci-fi books. Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. Ancillary Justice is set thousands of years in the future and follows a character named Breck that is an ancillary. An ancillary is a soldier in a human body that is controlled by an artificially intelligent spaceship. The story is written in the first person, which is interesting because it lets us into the mind of an artificially intelligent character. However, an intriguing second layer to that is that mind is just a small part of a larger being. In a way, an ancillary is like a finger that is part of a body, but that finger is also capable of independent thought. And this leads to interesting explorations of the tactical capabilities for this projection of technology, but it also ties into the themes of individual versus collective consciousness. Now, a focus of the book is culture, also referred to as a lot of tea drinking. And as someone that loves big concepts, crazy technology, ambitious plots, this isn't typically what I'm drawn to in science fiction, but what it does highlight is how advanced this artificial intelligence is. They not only respond to inputs, but they also need to be able to discern nuance and subtext specific to different cultures. The robots in this world struggle with their identities and are capable of highly complex emotions. The ways that these are similar to, but also different from, humans makes for a very interesting projection for the future of robots. Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill. Sea of Rust is set in a post-apocalyptic world where humans are extinct and robots and one-world intelligences roam the land. As far as projections for the future of robots go, this is not one of the best ones for us. This story is also written in the first person as we follow Brittle, a robot trying to scavenge for spare parts in order to survive in this barren wasteland. Brittle is an entertaining character to spend time with, as they're rather crafty when it comes to hunting as well as being the hunted. They're also quite a humorous character, and a lot of the dialogue in this book feels like it could have been pulled from an action film. A common complaint I hear from science fiction readers is when robots and aliens talk and act just like humans. And I think this is a fair complaint, especially in regard to aliens. Given the incomprehensible size of the universe, it seems rather unlikely that aliens from different environments with different biologies would have similar mentalities and philosophies to humans. It also makes them less interesting to read and learn about. However, I'm a little more lenient on this when it comes to robots. Robots designed by humans with a human understanding of maths and science and history will have some human influences. Robots that sound exactly like humans aren't that exciting to me, but when it comes to robots that are almost human-like, it's those minor differences that I find intriguing. So while this book explores themes to do with memory and identity and individuality, which are all very human experiences, I enjoyed exploring them through the perspective of a robot. And just before we get to our last book, if you love robots and perhaps you wish you could be a robot, an android, or a cyborg, you can. Kind of. Check out the links in my description to my Patreon memberships, where you can become a robot, android, or cyborg like Neem and a New Eden. One of the perks is being able to vote on my TBR, and at the end of this video, I'll be spinning the quantum wheel to determine the next patron pick of the month. All Systems Red by Martha Wells. All Systems Red is the first novella in the Murderbot series, and also happens to be written in the first person. Our main character is a cyborg security agent that has nicknamed itself Murderbot. Murderbot is socially reserved and would prefer to be watching soap operas than interacting with humans and completing its designated assignments. I've heard a lot of people say they found Murderbot funny. Personally, I felt empathy and sympathy for Murderbot, more so than I was amused by Murderbot. But I do think it says something that a lot of people found Murderbot to be relatable. An interesting aspect of this world was that even though the technology has advanced considerably from our current day, everything was built so cheaply that it could be easily broken or hacked into. It was these little nuggets of world building that I found to be more interesting than the actual plot. Another interesting element for me was that the Murderbot cyborg was human-like in appearance, but for security reasons and Murderbot's preference, they wore armor and a helmet. This created a physical barrier between the cyborg and the humans, and is representative of the masks that we create and present to others. So those are 6 depictions for robots, and as fiction, I think that all of them are designed to not so much explore the likeliest future for robots, but 6 futures that pose interesting philosophical questions for humans. The modern books were highly influenced by the classics, but the biggest trend I noticed was a shift from asking, what are these robots, to who are these robots? Let me know some of your favorite books about robots in the comments, and if you'd like to see what I'll be reading next, here is this month's Quantum Wheel. Welcome to the Quantum Wheel, where all of the patron picks are both simultaneously picked and not picked until we observe a winner. Let's find out what book I'll be reading next in the month of July. Alright, spin Quantum Wheel, spin. Quite a few good book choices on the wheel this week. Let's see what it's going to be. Steel World or Tau Zero? Oh, it ticked over to Tau Zero! Tau Zero by Paul Anderson. A classic. It's supposed to be hard sci-fi, space opera, quick adventure to do with time dilation and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'll be reading that in towards the end of July. If you want to join me, pick up Tau Zero. Let's see how it goes. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, subscribe. It's free. And you can find more sci-fi content over here.